Giving me an up-close and personal view. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Joanne Powell Show. I am Joanne. We are coming to you from the World Center of Broadcast Media, WCOB Hollywood. We've had a wonderful show. We've been talking a little bit about what's been going on up on Capitol Hill, but we're going to shift gears, and we are going to spend time taking a look at some issues dealing with Black history. There has been a lot of things going on during Black History Month, the month of February, but we're going to have some information on a story that might not be as well known when it comes to civil rights. Everybody knows the story of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., how he blazed the trail and as a trailblazer in the civil rights movement, along with a lot of other things that was involved with that. But during this time, a story that's little known aspect of the civil rights movement was what was going on in Selma, Alabama. Of course, we know about the Freedom March, but there's a component to that story that is very interesting. It's where Dr. King kind of had his headquarters. It was in the home of the Jackson family. And we're going to find a little bit about the history of that home. It's now a museum, but take a look and listen. Joanna Jackson was just 5 years old when she and her family became involved in the civil rights movement. Her father, Dr. Sullivan Jackson, was a dentist, and her mother, Richie Jean Shera Jackson, were good friends with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The Jacksons opened up their home to Dr. King as he prepared for the infamous 1965 march from her hometown of Selma, Alabama, to the Capitol in Montgomery for voting rights. Selma, before the march, blacks were not allowed to vote. You can see people standing in line to register to vote, only to be rejected. Dr. King came to Selma to organize the movement. Selma Police Chief Wilson Baker, seen here with Dr. King, worked to keep things peaceful in Selma. Baker actually protected Dr. King and the Jackson house. Baker told King once he crossed the bridge, he would be in the county, in Sheriff Jim Clark's jurisdiction, where things would likely turn violent. And that's what happened on Bloody Sunday, when some 600 marchers were met with violence as they crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge. They were beaten by state and local lawmen with billy clubs and tear gas. The national exposure ignited the movement and angered Americans. Thousands flew in and drove to Selma to participate in the march to Montgomery a few weeks later. Here you see Joanna and her mother in the white sunglasses and civil rights leader Andrew Young. They were among thousands of marchers taking part in the march. 3,200 civil rights marchers started this historical event Sunday, March 21st, 1965, walking 12 miles a day. By the time they reached the Capitol, on Thursday, March 25th, there were 25,000 marchers strong. Joanna knew Dr. King not as a civil rights revolutionary who would change the course of history and win the Nobel Peace Prize. She knew him as Uncle Martin. He would stay in this bedroom where he spent time on this telephone negotiating with President Johnson, working on the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Here you see Dr. King watching President Johnson the night he delivered the famous "We Shall Overcome" speech. Dr. King would also have dinners in the Jackson home with civil rights, religious, and world leaders. The Jackson home is now a museum. Joanna's mother wrote a book entitled "The House Beside the Road: The Selma Civil Rights Movement," chronicling some of the historic activities that took place in their home and the role it played in the civil rights movement. Dr. King's daughter, Bernice King, is seen here when she visited the Jackson home for the first time. 2 years ago, the 50th anniversary of the march took place in Selma. It was a time to reflect and remember. Well, joining me now is the little girl that you saw in the story, although she's all grown up now. Her name is Joanna Jackson. She is now the CEO of the Sullivan and Richie Jean Sherrod Jackson Foundation and Museum. Welcome to our show, Joanna.
Thank you so much. I am delighted and honored to be with you this afternoon.
Well, your history and your connection to the civil rights movement and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as you refer to him as Uncle Martin, has been pretty remarkable. It's a story that is not as wide known as some of the others possibly during the civil rights movement, although it was a very pivotal component, because if it wasn't for your parents kind of opening up your home, he would have not had that place where he could have come, where he came to kind of do all the planning of the Freedom March and basically negotiating for the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So take us back to that time. Well, first of all, you're joining us in the house in Selma right now.
Correct.
What part of the house are you?
I am here.
Okay.
In this very historic home, my childhood home.
Now tell me a little bit about the history. How did your parents first meet Dr. King?
My parents met him through another relative who was a member of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, the first church that Dr. and Mrs. King pastored in Montgomery, Alabama. Okay. They were two young couples that met. My father had established his dental practice in Selma, which is 50 miles away from Montgomery. And they forged a friendship that would last until Dr. King's death in 1968.
So tell us a little bit about how that kind of branched into being involved with your home being kind of the civil rights headquarters for the Freedom March.
As Dr. King planned the social movement in the South, and I must add that all of the major campaigns that Dr. King staged were in Alabama, interestingly enough. Montgomery, Selma, and Birmingham. And once he moved closer to putting together the need to have a major march in this country for voting rights, and he determined that he wanted to stage the march from Selma to Montgomery, he approached my father and asked my parents if he could use their home here in Selma as the backdrop, as a place where he could plan with others the template for the Selma to Montgomery March. So a home that was previously occupied by a father and a mother and a 4- and 5-year-old little girl suddenly became a home that was open to the world. So many different people came through our home in a 6-month period leading up to the 1965 Selma to Montgomery March.
And one thing that was interesting is before that march, if you were a black person in Selma, you could not vote at that time.
Correct.
And even though people would go to register to vote, they were turned away. So there was a kind of a very pivotal part in our nation's history with what was going on there, and it was a key component. What made your parents decide to open up your home and making it your Uncle Martin, Dr. King's home away from home when it came to this very important issue?
As fate would have it, having a young daughter, both of my parents wanted the best for me. And after Uncle Martin made the request to use my parents' home, my father and mother came into my room and saw me asleep as a 4-year-old little girl and went back to Dr. King and quite simply stated, if we have an opportunity to make Joanna's life better and the life of so many children across this nation and the world a much better place, then whatever we can do to contribute to improving this, not only nation but the world, we would like to do that and support you. And that is how the Jackson home became the headquarters for Dr. King and so many others in planning the Selma to Montgomery March.
Well, Joanna, we're going to have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to hear more from your story and the key components and a lot of things that were going on at your house during that pivotal time in the civil rights movement. You're watching the Joanne Powell Show. We'll be right back.
If you are an adult that began college and has not finished your college degree, let me put it to you straight. If your lifestyle and your standard of living is not becoming to you, then you should be coming to us. Oakwood University LEAP program. We are the fast, flexible adult degree completion program for the busy adult, like you.
Register today. Go to oakwoodleap.com or call 256-726-7098. It's time to leap.
For years, people have trusted McKay's Family Mortuary. We're part of your community and we'll take care of the details. We offer a variety of memorial services, including sea scattering and cremation. According to the Federal Trade Commission, the average funeral cost is over $9,000. We have complete funeral chapel service starting at only $31.25, casket included. Direct cremation starting at only $9.95. Visit one of our 5 locations and meet our caring and diverse staff. McKay Family Mortuary. Let us be the shoulder to lean on.
Thanks to Oakwood University and the LEAP program, I have now a college degree. So to the Spanish-speaking members of this community who feel that the LEAP program is something you should consider, I would say, ánimo a la universidad. Considere el programa LEAP de Oakwood University.
Go to oakwoodleap.com or call 256-726-7098.
Seize the Day Scuba for your best scuba experience above and below the sea. You'll find friendly staff, experienced PADI certified instructors, and state-of-the-art scuba equipment and gear. Join our dive club and we'll help you plan memorable scuba excursions. Immerse yourself. Seize the Day Scuba, serving Southern California. Call 949-220-0500 to create your scuba experience.
When I first started into the program, yes, I had doubts. I was really impressed with Oakwood University, with the faculty and the staff and the student body. It was a really good experience, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who was thinking about going back and finishing their degree.
Register today. Go to oakwoodleap.com or call 256-726-7098.